Welcome, readers, to another episode of the Bougie Book Pod. I am Tara.
I'm Kyra.
And we are back on our book bullshit. We are here for another retelling of another story. We are back in the world of mystery and psychological thriller with The Quiet Tenant by Clemence Michallan.
I think it's interesting. There's on Goodreads, it's the other cover listed. And and so when I bought this, I was like, man, am I getting the knockoff cover? And then you showed up with it too, and I was like, maybe this is just what's out. I don't know.
Well, this is all I saw in the store.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, so this is what we are talking about today. We've done a lot of fantasy talk in the last few episodes, so we're bringing it back old school to our little thrillers. The Quiet Tenant by Clemence Michallan, and I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, is a dark psychological thriller that takes place in upstate New York. A debut novel by Michallan, this book is an addictive read of multiple perspectives written in the first, second, and third person point of view, which was really cool. Through this, Michallan is able to suck her readers into the horrifying perspective of being the captive of a meticulous and under-the-radar serial killer. Touching upon the ideas of control, survival, deception, resilience, and the underlying fear that we never truly know someone, The Quiet Tenant, I think, is a must-read for any fan of suspense and crime. As always, we have spoilers abound as we deep dive into the plot, the characters, and possible themes.
And this one, I feel like for some reason, I just randomly pick ones that I think need like trigger warnings, but this one is like, ooh, they don't go in depth with some of the stuff, but there are some like sexual abuse type stuff happening as well.
Yeah.
Not like we need to touch on that, but just a heads up if you listen to this and then you decide to read it.
Yeah, it is about a serial killer. So he's doing awful things.
And to women.
And to women. And he has one that he has kept captive for, I can't remember it now, 5 years. So he's done awful things to her, and of course, sexual abuse. So if that's not your jam, perhaps this is not the book for you. But if you are dark and twisted like I am, this is a great, great choice.
So our serial killer is named Aiden, which interestingly enough, we don't find out until a good chunk of the way through the book. He never says his name to the woman he's keeping captive, which is very intentional. And then even though we have the point of view of someone outside in the community who is like interacting with him, she never says his name either. So he seems really normal. He probably has like a very normal job. However, his wife just went through cancer, and I can't remember if it was the first time or the second time. I want to say she actually had it maybe twice.
Yeah, and then she didn't make it through the second round.
So he has a teenage daughter. They make it sound like he's very well respected in the community, a small community, but in the community.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone is familiar with upstate New York. I used to live there for a wee bit, and it is very tiny, kind of a lot of towns where everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
And he definitely seems like that guy that everyone can rely on. They go to him for things.
And it's interesting because you're not introduced to him as a serial killer right off the bat. It comes together like, oh, this is what he's doing. And then there's Rachel. That's the woman who he's holding captive, and he has told her she is Rachel. We learn her name eventually, but she's Rachel for almost the entire story. And it's interesting because she was supposed to be just another victim.
Yeah.
And then things change. We'll get into what changed that. And so she really does. She's very, very smart. She knows how to survive, and she keeps herself alive, even though it's for 5 years.
Yeah, I can't say I don't know if I would have been able to do what she does and endure.
And the only reason, I think it's interesting, the only reason she knows like 5 years has passed is because of Thanksgiving. Yeah. It's like the one thing that keeps her grounded, which is interesting. And as always, you've got the innocent little daughter involved who just thinks her dad is, controls her a little bit, but like trying to keep her safe. She's about 13. There's some interesting dynamics with that. She doesn't really have a big social life. Like he really keeps it contained. And then there's Emily, and she's kind of our outsider point of view. She's a local bartender. Her parents owned a restaurant that she inherited, and Aiden stops in like twice a week. He doesn't drink, just gets like a Coke or something. I can't remember, and then switches to like a virgin old fashioned, which I was like, oh. But she is a bit younger than Aiden. She starts to grow this crush on Aiden, this like infatuation with him. And then we kind of see that unravel as well. But
yeah,
I don't want to give away too much with that without going into the summary of the plot. So do you want to start that off, or?
Sure. We start with Rachel as she's introduced as the woman in the shed. So all her chapters are like the woman in the shed and titles like that. Like we said, that we learned that she's been captive for 5 years. In the beginning, we learned that this guy, Aidan, his wife has died, and it's forcing him and his daughter to move. And because he has to move, he needs to decide, do I kill Rachel or do I take her with me? And so he's let Rachel know, we're moving, we got to go, things are about to change. And she has this moment of like, oh, he's going to kill me. There's no way I can travel with him. So she puts this plan together to start just kind of talking to him about it and making him feel like it'll be so easy.
Yeah.
We can still have our thing. I will be quiet. I won't say anything. Like, you need me to come with you to keep you balanced, And she really like plays that with him, and he starts to think. She could tell that he's starting to think, oh, you know what? Maybe I can pull this off. And so he agrees, and she moves along with them. It's really interesting, her balance of survival, and then also she's having moments where she's starting to forget what her real name is, what her real life is. But then she also will mention she can't think about her real life or her real people because that's what's going to kill her.
Yeah.
Because it, like the heartbreak of it. So he moves her into the house. And basically, and this is so bold for someone who for 5 years kept everything so separate, he decides, this is what we're going to do. Like, in the middle of the night, I'm going to bring you. My daughter will be asleep. I've got a room for you upstairs. So no longer is she like on the dirt floor of a shed. So she's upgrading. But he's like, we've got rules. You can come down for breakfast. You're going to tell her that you're somebody I'm helping. But the door will always be locked. You stay up there all day. And I just think, for someone who had played it so smart for so long, I'm not really sure what he was thinking here.
You immediately, that's the first time he starts to slip.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense. You didn't let anyone know she was back. I mean, like, granted, that'd be weird. You had a woman in your shed.
Yeah.
But now it's like she works from home. Like, he has to come up with this whole story.
Yeah.
And he doesn't give her too much to work off of, which I find interesting. So their dynamic when they are having breakfast and his daughter starts to like ask things.
Yeah.
There's so much of it that she has to like, what would he want me to say?
Yeah.
He was like, oh, your name's Rachel. You needed a place to stay, so I'm like subletting this for you.
Yeah, you have no one.
You have no one, and you like work from home.
Yeah, and she's just got to fill in the rest. I think what helps is that his daughter is so used to being controlled. Yeah. She's very clipped in her responses and questions as well. It's like she asks for a little bit. I think she recognizes this is weird. Yeah. And she's like, whatever, moving on. So we have like this weird, almost family dynamic now where she joins them for breakfast almost every day.
Yeah, and sometimes for dinner.
Yes, or she'll sit there and watch Jeopardy with them or watch some TV shows. It's very odd, but then slowly you can see Cecilia starting to feel comforted by having another woman there. And so like there's this weird dynamic where Rachel is feeling like she wants to build this trust with Cecilia. Perhaps Cecilia might be her way out. She starts to plan her escape. But then there are moments where she could have escaped. So he usually will handcuff her to the radiator in her room. But one day he doesn't like lock it. He doesn't lock the handcuffs, and the door is not locked. And she's got this moment of like, is it a trap?
And he also tells her that like there's cameras everywhere. They're in the house. They're outside of the house. I have this thing on my phone.
Yeah, I'll get an alert.
I'll get an alert. Yeah. But then she starts to think about it, and she's like, things have happened that he hasn't brought up. Yeah. So like, is there really? are there really cameras in there?
Yeah.
But then she realizes this is so impromptu. She doesn't have a plan.
Yeah. Where am I going to go anyway?
It'd be too big of a risk if she went that day.
Yeah. And then he also tells her that he's a lineman.
Yeah.
My dad was a lineman, and I'm thinking, like, you can't see everything, but he's like, I'm a lineman, so I'm up on the power poles or whatever you call them, and I can see everything. So, like, just know that I'm always watching. But, you know, she's been captive for 5 years in a hole, basically. And so she is just paranoid. You can see where she would think, like, this is a trick. He's probably around the corner, and he's going to get me. Yeah. And then if he sees that I took this first opportunity when he's being nice to me, then I'm dead. And so she doesn't escape. Now on the flip side, we keep going through these 3 different perspectives. I'm trying to remember now. When we read from Rachel, I'm pretty sure it's the second person. It's always, you know, you think to yourself, things like that. Yeah. And then when we're with
Emily is first person.
And then there's a third person point of view, like kind of explaining, I guess, what the things that he's doing or things that are going on around him. But back in the community here, they all get together to raise funds for him. So the house that he's living in is owned by the judge of the town, and he's basically giving him a really good deal because his wife had passed away and everybody loves him. So they're coming together and they're doing like a run.
It's 5K.
Like a 5K, and there's the whole community chips in for certain foods and decorations, and they're raising all this money for him. And it's crazy to see the toggle back and forth between this well-respected and loved and kind of pitied man and then this monster.
Which is interesting though, because there are 2 people who kind of teeter in the middle, I think, and that's his in-laws. Because his in-laws owned the house
that he lived in with the daughter.
That he and his wife and the daughter lived in, and then their daughter dies, and they're like, get out.
Yeah. Get out.
So like they don't dive in on that at all, and like rarely talk about them. You kind of see it through his daughter's point of view. She talks about the grandparents, but it's kind of like, I don't know. I was like, why don't you guys? Also, why don't you give him some time, even if it is your house? And now you're like, whatever. Like, what?
If I were to like make a wild guess about why, I think they probably had his number in some capacity because he does control everything.
Yeah.
I imagine he took her away from them.
Yeah.
Because he does have to have control over who's at the house and when. Remember, he's got a woman living in there.
He rarely leaves, but he does leave every once in a while, like on weekends and stuff.
But he has to have at least this idea that he's got enough control that he feels safe leaving. Because we didn't mention that even though he has this girl in his garage or whatever, he will go out occasionally to scratch his itch where he feels like not only does he need to abuse her, but he needs to kill.
Yeah.
And and Rachel will always mention that she knows, like, when he feels good, when he comes back, she knows that he has killed someone.
And you get these weird point of views, like these weird chapters sprinkled in. It's like number 1, number 2, number 3. And the way these victims retaliate, you have no idea who they are, how he's really killing them. They're just really, honestly, half a page, if that. And it's just like, oh, all right then. And then it just moves on.
Yeah, it's like little snippets of the last moments of their life and the thoughts that they were having. And Rachel knows that there are other women being murdered. So she's got this incredible guilt of, how am I surviving? And their deaths are what's keeping me alive. It's it's really, really wild. And you're thinking all over the place here. So anyway, we're back to the 5K and everybody's raising funds for him. Now, this lady, Emily, that works and runs the restaurant, she has got this huge crush on him. She talks about how, like, once when she was little, he came in and fixed their refrigerators or something like that. In the kitchen. And ever since then, she's just always really looked up to him. She really looks forward to him coming in. And she just decides, like, she's going to shoot her shot and try to develop more of their routine, because it's usually just like, here's your drink, have a good night, and that's it. So she tries to start talking to him more. She makes him that drink. She pitches in to do certain things at the 5K and just has these moments with him now where I think he's realized, oh, she likes me. And as the reader, you're never sure if he genuinely kind of likes her back or if he's like, oh, this will be fun. But I think it would be too dangerous for her to be a victim.
Yeah.
Because there's so much light on her.
It's really odd. The relationship is difficult.
Yeah.
And they go from like 100 to 0.
Yes.
Like he comes to the restaurant, they have like a little quickie, and then he like ghosts her. So then you're like, is he gone doing something?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
But then Emily herself, like, girlfriend's a little cuckoo because she's like, oh, I'll just drive past his house and see. And then it's like, oh, he's not here. I bet there's a key under a potted plant. And she lets herself into the house.
I could never imagine.
And then tells Aiden, like, oh, I thought I smelled smoke. And like,
yeah, but she was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. If anyone asks, I'll just say I thought the house was on fire.
So she runs into, like, Rachel. And so there's this weird story that has to be, like, gathered. But, like,
yeah,
once Emily started doing that stuff, I was like,
yeah,
you're crazy.
Girl,
I need you to stop.
To...
It's one thing to, like, drive past someone's house.
Yeah.
But, like, oh, let me just let myself. What were you gonna get from that? And that's when Rachel starts to pick up on, like, he probably doesn't have cameras because of the Emily coming in.
He would have come here right away. He never mentions anything about it to her. So she starts feeling a little more brave. Like, okay, I don't have to stay in my room. I can explore a little bit. I can figure something out.
And then it helps that we have Christmas break.
Yes.
Because Cecilia has to be home and he has to be gone. And so...
And he has the nerve to ask her, will you watch my daughter for me?
Yeah, so Rachel's now...
She's like, what am I supposed
able
to
say?
Able to
roam the house.
Yeah.
And so she starts to venture down into the basement because at one point he lost his cool with Rachel and took her in the truck, took her in the woods, and was like 2 seconds away from killing her.
Yeah. He beat her almost.
Beat the crap out of her. Yeah. And then she does like find herself in the basement for a while after that. So she knows the basement exists. So she's able to pick a lock because heaven forbid she had a boyfriend in high school that could pick locks. Yeah. Like channeled that memory. She's like, I'm not sure what my name is, but I remember this one guy like telling me, I'm like, okay, you do you. So then she starts to see those boxes and he keeps tokens from his kills. And the interesting thing is when Emily stumbles into the house, Rachel notices Emily's necklace that Aiden gave her. So you do think like, oh, he does like her. It was Rachel's necklace. Yeah. And so she was like, oh, interesting. But then she starts to find like there's a gun down there and she's trying to use it to her advantage and things like that. And starting to get like, that's where I think she's starting to play like, okay, now she doesn't have to wait for an impromptu moment to leave. She can play the long game. And then Emily has to be all weird and like, oh, let's do another fundraiser, like party. It's not even really a fundraiser. Let's throw a party because they don't have any decorations at their house for Christmas and it's so sad. It's like
she's just looking for any excuse to be around him because they were doing like this texting relationship, which is what allows Rachel a little more freedom, or not even freedom, but more opportunities to learn things or to notice things about him because he's very distracted by this Emily thing. But yeah, she tries to put this, well, she does. She puts this party together with the judge and somehow he agrees, yeah, fine, but you can't go in my house. Yeah.
So Rachel knows it's going to happen. He has to prep her for it. You're not coming out, all that stuff. And so she's like, okay, I'm ready to go. And, that's why Aiden takes her into the woods and almost beats her to an inch of her life. They have an opportunity to leave and she tries to get Cecilia to go with her and Cecilia screams.
Yeah.
And Cecilia pisses me off at this point because Cecilia hints to Rachel that like he's doing some weird shit to her too.
Yeah.
And she hears things at night and like it freaks her out. Anyway, so then when the Christmas party comes around and she does get the opportunity, she still takes Cecilia.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get it, but also we get Cecilia's point of view and Aiden's not doing anything to her.
No, she's not. The crazy thing is she does take Cecilia by gunpoint. So Cecilia doesn't really have a choice.
She doesn't have a choice this time.
But there is a point where he catches up to them. He takes Emily's car and he's chasing them. and Rachel gets into an accident. Of course, that always has to happen. And he's running after her, and she's telling Cecilia to run. Now, she could have just ran to her father, but she chooses to run with Rachel.
Yeah.
And I think there's something really important there where Cecilia probably never had an idea of what was really happening, but I think in her bones she knew
her dad was
something wasn't right.
And then it's funny to me because Emily pisses me off so for a good 80% of this book.
Yeah, I just feel bad for her.
And then all of a sudden Emily decides to redeem herself because, oh, this is so weird. Like, I'm going to go with you, Aiden.
Yeah.
Take my car. I'm coming with you.
Yeah.
And Aiden's probably, like, I don't know if Aiden doesn't think this through, but now there's a reliable person witnessing all of this.
Yeah.
And, like, she gets out of the car, too, and she's like, I'm not just going to sit here.
Yeah.
So she witnesses Aiden trying to, like, control this woman and get her back and, like...
But he's so good at manipulation and control that I do have a feeling he would have been able to turn that story around, because in her hysterics, I mean, she did take his daughter with gunpoint or from gunpoint. And I can see Emily so wrapped up in this like lust for him that she would believe that you had this crazy, your crazy cousin or whatever. Mm-hmm, oh my gosh. But also, we forgot to mention there was the scene where she tells Aiden that she was at his house.
Okay.
Oh my God, that scene is so creepy because she sees him out and about in town and she goes to talk to him. I'm really sorry, I went to your house, and he was like, you what? Because right before that moment, he was being kind of sweet with her still. And the moment that he knew that she went in the house, his demeanor changes. And he's like, you know what? I'm having problems with my truck. Can you come help me? And I'm thinking, oh no, girl. Yeah. Like, he was going to kill her.
Like, that was his impromptu
He was going to kill her. And then somebody comes out of the restaurant and they're like, we really need you. Can you? But like, I think he notices that like somebody saw, now there will be a witness that she left with me. And she's like, well, no, I got to help him. He's like, you know what? Never mind. I'm good. And it was just like, she had no clue how close she came to being murdered by this man. And that's why, like, when she keeps doing these things, you're like, oh my God, girl, just stay away from this psycho.
It's a lot, but...
It is a lot.
I mean, there are so many different things because you just, like, the theme of female resilience, and, like, I hate to just trash on Emily because she pisses me off, but, like, Rachel, what she goes through is wild, and the rules she has come up with for herself on how to survive, and she hasn't completely mentally lost herself because she's able to go to the police station after, and she's able to say who she is.
Yeah.
And so they're able to figure out, like, oh my God, this woman's been missing for 5 years.
Yeah.
And she's, like, 2 towns away from, like, where she's supposed to be, of course. Yeah. That's always how it happens.
Which is nutso. And then she finds out that her parents moved from, I think they lived on Long Island or in the city area, and they moved to where she was last found or last living in the hopes of finding her. And so, like, the idea that her parents were just 2 towns away this whole time.
Because the whole time, you don't understand, like, how Rachel doesn't tell the story of how she got into Aiden's captivity until the end.
The very end, yeah.
And it's like, she goes through this traumatic experience when she's in college.
Yeah.
And so she's, like, about to get kicked out of school. All these crazy things are happening. And so she's like, I can't sleep. I need some time in the woods. And then
it's beautiful upstate New York.
And that's the thing is, like, Rachel was so smart.
Yeah.
May is actually her name, but Rachel was so smart, so determined. But, like, Rachel 5 years ago was an idiot.
Yeah.
And she rents this cabin in the woods. And, like, granted, I love the woods too, whatever. But, like, what? No, not as a woman in your 20s. She goes up alone and she's having a great time and all this peacefulness.
She goes on a run, the same route, same time, like
through the woods with nothing but her fists, I'm sure.
Yeah, and then when she was in the basement looking through the boxes, she found her box and pictures of her well before she had been taken by him. So he was watching her movements and she never knew.
The woods are beautiful, but there's just that sense of like the unknown in them, and it's like so dangerous even when you feel like you're safe. I don't know. She pisses me off that she does that in the first
I
place.
just
But
feel like, and I'm never ever victim shaming, but I just feel like just to exist as a woman
yes,
is dangerous.
yes,
It is dangerous to be a woman. Now, I'm not, it's not like the same thing as like, well, you shouldn't have worn that. No, but like also just like have people around you, like never, like when I was younger and we would go to clubs and stuff, it was a big rule. No one
yeah.
leaves without one of us. If you want to go early, you got to find somebody who's going to leave early. You're never leaving this club with a man we don't know.
Yeah.
Like, we don't do that. That's why, like, when Natalie Holloway disappeared, first thing all my friends, we were all 18 at the time, the first thing all my friends said was, how did her friends let her leave by herself?
I was only put in one situation where I think like my roommate, I always was around runners, which pissed me off. Like my friends were always runners, I swear to God. And she was a runner, and she ran, and I didn't know where she was, and I was at Michigan State, and I remember like, because we didn't call Ubers back then. We always just walked the, like 15 miles because State was so big, and I just remember like running up with a group that was primarily female. There were only like 2 guys and like 6 girls in this pack, and I'd been following them for a while. And I asked where they were going, and they were going to the same neighborhood. And I was like, my roommate ran, and I don't want to walk by myself. And they walked me back, but I was just like,
but it's true. I mean, when I was in college, I had a job, and so sometimes I would get home late and I have to take the bus, and I was always scared. And so my roommates were like, okay, as soon as you get on the bus, call me. Be on the phone the whole time while I was sitting there. Or sometimes I call my mom or my dad.
I do that in Uber still.
Same when I was dating, and I would always, here's my location. This is where I'm going. This is the name of the person I'm going to meet. Like, I wish it wasn't that way, but it is. And I think the moment you can just recognize it, then you can find ways to be safe.
Yes.
And running by yourself, I understand when you need those moments by yourself, but at least like have a tracker on you, or tell somebody where you are or where you're going to be.
Or carry something, a machete, a knife. Mace. I don't care. Like,
I used to walk to work a lot when I first moved here in Houston. I didn't drive because I'm from New York and I didn't think I'd ever have to. And I would walk to work with a thing of mace or a pepper spray because sometimes there were just dogs in the neighborhood that were loose. But there was one time where I had my earbuds on and I was walking and I wasn't paying attention, and someone tried to pull me into their car. And I learned some valuable lessons. 1, let's not be listening to music when you're alone. 2, always walk facing traffic, not away from traffic, because it's just certain things. And like I said, just being a girl it's dangerous.
So sorry, Rachel, but
I know. But I guess if she didn't do that, there wouldn't be a story. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, though, and my mom has said this to me, like, if somebody really wants to get you, they're going to get you. Like, you can be so wonderful in your observations and trying to be as safe as you can, but sometimes you can't, which is why we can commend her for her can't say that word today.
Resilience.
Well, I was going to say it, not just resilience, but I was like, I guess I was going to make up a new word like resilientness, but I guess that's just not a word.
I'm not really sure there.
Okay. Moving on.
The other thing that I think is interesting that you touched on, kind of like 2 different things with Aiden, is the blindness of like, these people are right in front of us, and like we just don't know.
You never know.
Which is, I just read The Perfect Son by Frida McFadden, and they talk a lot about the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath, and that freaked me out because it's like, psychopaths are very rare, but like they can manipulate and like make you think I don't know what Aiden is, but I don't know. That was creepy. But it's just like, there's some weird stat about how many times you actually will walk past a murder in your life, because they break down the numbers of like how many murders have occurred, and then it's kind of like the population and how many are actually in jail. I mean, who knows? It's probably so false, but it's just like creepy to think about. I don't know.
Well, yeah, you cross paths with so many people all the time in the span of your lifetime. And it may not even be a murderer. It could be a rapist. It could
Yeah.
be just like an awful person, and you have no idea what they're doing to other people.
And he's the typical, like, you see something, or even if you knew someone, and it's like, how, you know, people are like, but how could he do that to us? He was so, I'm like, yeah, look at Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
But those are the perfect criminals.
Yeah.
Because you don't see it coming. Very interesting. Needless to say, I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the different types of perspectives. It was really cool to see second person. Haven't seen that in a while. And I think she masterfully was able to toggle between all those different perspectives. And it definitely made it another quick read. What did you think?
So I don't know if you want me to go into like actually how I felt about it, because this one is super interesting. It was actually not my favorite.
Okay.
I mean, it's good. I was kind of like, I had higher hopes. I was just getting on Goodreads because it has a 3.28 rating, which honestly for psychological thrillers are like whatever, they teeter in between that 3 or 4. Fantasies I figure are always higher because people are like actually like in a cult about it, which I could blame myself.
But I also think, and we touched on this before, we let a lot of things slide in fantasy world because it is a fantasy world. And when we're reading things that like could actually happen to people, we're definitely way more judgmental and like, well, that couldn't happen, or they couldn't have done this.
Yeah, so I wanted to also get on here because when I rated it, so I'm a 3, 4, 5er unless I did not finish it. And I actually gave this one a 3. And I want to say it's because
I don't remember what I gave it.
I think I looked and I feel like you gave it a 4.
I think I did too.
And I think for me it was because, and this is really bad, it just didn't move enough for me.
Oh, okay.
And I think that was my issue. It was like the plot movement to a certain point was like Emily, who we all know annoyed me. What'd you give it?
I gave it a 5.
Oh my god. Emily, who annoyed me, in her plot movement, and then Rachel dinking around the house. And for some reason, this Goodreads review, I don't know if it's like just because, I don't know why this one pops up first, but it popped up first when I rated it. And I found this, he writes a lot, but I found this first paragraph very interesting. He says, and I say he because it might be a he, but the name is crazy. I can't even say it. It says, this is undeniably one of the darkest, most sinister, bone-chilling, and psychologically complex thrillers that will leave you either hating it or completely enthralled. And I did not feel like it was that extreme for that many adjectives. And I'm just curious what he's read in the past. Because I read that. He says, while it may haunt your nightmares for a long time, I found myself irresistibly drawn to it. The slow burning progression, see, which like for me was no.
Okay.
Mind-blowing and multi-layered characterizations, albeit disturbing. It stained me, it haunted me, and it left me absolutely shattered. And I was like,
oh, whoa. That is dramatic.
And I just didn't feel that way because... And like I said, who knows what he's read? When I think of those books that like stick with me, I'm thinking of the Gone Girls. I'm thinking of stuff like that.
I wonder, would you say you are a fan of true crime?
Like you read a book about something that actually happened?
Watching documentaries about certain people. Yeah, okay. Because I feel like maybe the reason that I really enjoyed this is because I have like, I don't want to call it an obsession, but I have this fascination with people like Aidan.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like ever since I learned who Ted Bundy was.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a project on him in high school
in
my criminal justice class. And I just can't seem to wrap my mind around the fact that people like that can exist.
Yeah.
The ones, like there's the crazy people who are like, well, that is a crazy person. Granted, he does crazy things, but he doesn't, what's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't play as crazy. And so it's just like, I think that's, if you allow yourself to think about it enough, that's like the mind shattering thing of like what we were talking about. You just don't know who these evil people are because they're so good at playing it. And so if you allow yourself to just kind of run down that rabbit hole, you can get sucked into this story and think about like, what would I do? Would I probably have died right away? Would I be able to notice? And so like,
I think for me, if I were to rate on just like the characters and things like that, it'd be better. But for me, it was, and no offense, Miss, I can't pronounce your name. Wait, Mister. We learned it was a guy, right?
It's a woman.
Okay, maybe we thought it was a guy.
Michallan. Yeah, we did think it was a guy.
It's the writing for me.
Oh, okay.
It's the slow pace of the plot. Emily, I'm ready to punt off the earth. And interestingly enough, the point of view we get the most is Rachel, who talks in second person, which is fine. I could not stand the choppy sentences. I don't know if you picked up on this.
Okay.
Her freaking chapters are so short. And it's like, you go to the door, you listen, you pick the lock.
She's setting a rhythm. She's trying to make your heart da-da-da-da-da-da. And honestly, like, that's how I felt. I was like, oh my God, like, what's going to happen? Are you
See, I couldn't.
And then when she gets to the part where she goes back, like when she was taken, like he clearly was going to kill her, but we forgot to mention.
Oh yeah, that was a good part.
So like him and his daughter have a thing where they always like to name like what certain groups are. Like you have like a school of fish.
Yeah. His daughter got like oddly obsessed with, like, there's one incident and her favorite is the murder
of crows.
Yeah.
And so like it became like their mission to like always figure out what things are called. And when he had Rachel,
she's smart and she keeps him talking.
Yeah, she's trying.
She tries.
Yeah, because that's what they always say is like try to humanize yourself, and she's just trying to be nice. And she's like, okay, what else can I do? And I think it's the crows that she sees. She's like, oh, they're called a murder of crows, and it's because she said that clearly something snapped in his head, and I think he couldn't handle thinking about his daughter while he was in this process, and so that saved her life.
Yeah.
But I totally respect you have a different.
I don't know. I read it and I was just kind of like, it was one of the books where I wasn't like, oh man, I need to sit on that for a second. I was like, go to Goodreads, mark this as read. What's my next book? I was ready to be done with it, and I feel really bad because there were great aspects to it, and I think it was just, I don't know, it just wasn't for me.
Okay.
I mean, it's good. It's not. If someone asked me like, hey, I need something to read, this isn't going to flush to my memory really quick and be like, oh, you should recommend this.
Gotcha.
Which is interesting because you have some comparisons to other novels, which, don't hate me, but I don't know those first three. I know the last one, Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris.
Okay, I haven't read that. Honestly,
that one's messed up.
Lovely Bones and Misery. I saw the movie.
Yeah.
Didn't read the book. But I put that down there in case you had read
the Closed Door. That one. Maybe it is because I live in this world of like reading about stuff, and like had this popped up on the news, I'd be like, oh shit, that's wild, that's crazy. But because it's in the book world, I'm like, give me something. And Behind Closed Doors is like, ugh, in the best fictional way.
It was making me think of, I can't remember if it was like Philadelphia. Was it Philadelphia where it was like these two or
three? Oh, the siblings?
One of them was her daughter.
Oh.
There were two women that were captive. I think it was Philadelphia. This was several, like 10, 15 years ago. And they were captive in this home. And then one day the door was left unlocked. I mean, years.
Oh, yeah. They have tons of, there's like some movie where it's like
I've only seen a movie about it. And I think it's with the girl that plays Captain Marvel.
She just runs.
I cannot think of her name right now, but it was a crazy story, and like you don't think that those things can happen. Even Elizabeth Smart, she was taken for years, and like neighbors saw her outside. So it's just a wild. I think the reason that I enjoy this so much is it just had me thinking all these different stories and like the real stories that I've heard of, and it's just like, damn, like it was just really making me wonder, like, what would I do? Would I have been able to survive? I don't know if I would have. I'd like to think that my gift of gab might help, but maybe it would also be my downfall. I don't know. I don't know.
And that's, yeah, like I said, if I were to see this on the news, I'd be like, oh, that's crazy. But then
Yeah.
when I'm reading a fictional book, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes me like more messed up. Because there were some disturbing things in this, very, very disturbing things in this. But I was just like, I needed, and maybe it was just the writing that took me away from it. I don't know.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, so those were our final thoughts on the book.
Yeah.
I believe. So we differ this time.
Yeah.
That's real life.
I think there was one other we had just a slight difference on, but I don't remember.
I can't remember.
But yeah, I had the advantage of reading this first or second, so when I saw your rating, I saw my rating, I was like, this will be interesting.
Well, that's what discussing it is all about. On a totally different note, I was on like the analysis of Spotify and stuff, and I saw that there is somebody in Ghana who has been listening to a lot of episodes, and I don't know who you are, but God bless. Please comment. I would love to know where in the world, I mean, where in Ghana, like how, why, what it is.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy this?
Every time you talk to me about like a new country popping up, I'm curious like how the stumbling upon, like,
yeah, how did you find it?
Yeah, that's what I'm always
because
like.
Because I don't think, and I love listening to podcasts, and I will occasionally look through to find different things. They're usually about the same things, about books or true crime. True crime is usually my big one. But I don't think I've ever had one pop up that was from like Germany or any other place. And so I'm just curious, like, how is it that our little old...
Yeah. I've listened to some British ones, but I think that's it.
I've listened to a British one before, but I think it was really through an American company. So, but anyway, so I've noticed someone from Ghana, and then there's someone from the UK, or some ones from the UK, and they're listening a lot too, and totally love that. But please comment, let us know where you're from, how'd you find us, what we can do to make it more interesting for you.
Going off of that, we do need someone from South America to step up because we're missing that. In Antarctica, we can't really, I mean, unless there's like a researcher down there.
Yeah, a researcher who loves to read books.
Can't really get that one, but South
America.
South America is interestingly,
join us.
Yeah. Did we get Australia?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're good there.
I don't know if they're continuing to listen, but they have been pinged, and that's been really exciting to see. So please comment. Just say where you're from and what you think, and if you turned it off after 30 seconds, that's fine. Just let me know. What would you like
Especially
to hear?
Last week's episode with my coughing. That was rough.
I did see that we lost a subscriber.
Damn.
But
it's probably for my cough.
No, I don't think so. This is my theory, because I saw the numbers for Housemaid go up, and it's almost like, I think it's the second most popular listened episode.
Because that movie.
I think it's because of the movie.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if it's because we weren't
obsessed with it.
We weren't obsessed with it. Maybe we made someone mad, and I had a feeling someone would be mad at me not liking the story that much.
At least this one of us did, and one of us was like,
so now it's balanced. Now we have a balance.
Dang, that's savage. One book, and then they were like, I'm done with you. Dang, that sucks.
I know. I was like, oh man. But
I've definitely like started listening to podcasts about books that I've read, and I'll be like, oh, this will be interesting to see what they say. And like they say something, and I just stop the episode after a while. I'm like, okay, I'll just move on to something else. Okay.
Whatever. It's fine. You know why?
People are just more savage.
It's fine because we have Ghana. Ghana will take us there. So we're going to take a little bit of a break for a couple of weeks. Kyra's doing a lot of traveling. And then also I think it'll be
this would not be fun over Zoom. Can you imagine the technical difficulties?
I was thinking about that. I'm like, I wonder if we could do that. And I was like, I don't even want to think about it. I'm pretty good when it comes to technology in my classroom. But when it comes to my personal life, I am so bad with it. And I think it's because I expect it to be super simple. Mm-hmm. And in my case, it never is.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it gives us some time to do some reading, catch up there.
Also gives you guys time to catch up on some of the books that we've read. Maybe we'll put out another Instagram post of things to come.
And we're both, I mean, we haven't even started the Fourth Wing series, but we are both currently reading Onyx Storm.
We're on the third book.
So we need some time for that to really digest that.
Yeah, I'm on Onyx Storm, like you said, and then I also bought a couple of
I have a huge
other thrillers. I've got the Paris Apartment, which is an older one.
At least, yeah.
But I know it'll be a quick and easy read. Then I got The Heiress. Then I also have Bright Young Women. So there's a lot of books that are on my to-be-read list.
Yeah.
I bought Throne of Glass. I know, I really want to start that. But then I saw someone say that you have to read Crescent City before the next A
Court of Thorns and Roses book. I know.
So now I'm like, oh no.
When you sent that to me, I was like, I need to actually read up on this because I was at the bookstore with my mom yesterday, it must have been, and I was pointed out the Crescent City series to her, and I was kind of explaining the same thing because she's read Throne of Glass, and then I looked, and those puppies are thick from the start.
I know. I saw one the other day in the store, and I was like, oh man. But it's funny because when you think about like some of the books that I've already read, they were pretty thick too. But I guess when you like it, you go through it fast.
I've never read a modern fantasy, and so I'm like a touch worried about it. And I'm not going to lie to you, the people, they are ACOTAR hard and they are Throne of Glass hard. And I'm not gonna lie, if you are this person, I would love to hear from you. I have never heard a Crescent City die hard.
You haven't?
People getting tattoos of her quotes, they're Throne of Glass quotes. They're ACOTAR stuff. And I'm just like, oh.
Interesting. Well, if you are, please let us know.
I also
Make the case.
Yes, and I also think the main male character has long hair, so I'm going to try to get that block up.
Yeah, I don't picture that. But I was just saying the other day, I haven't been this excited about reading since Harry Potter. Now, like, I continually read these types of books, and I read a lot of nonfiction books and a lot of self-help books. I'm not really sure they're helping, but since starting ACOTAR and even now the Fourth Wing series, I've got all these ideas and theories, and like I said, I haven't been that excited since Harry Potter, and you didn't start reading them until COVID, so they were all out. But I was reading them like I think only the first 3 or 4 were out. And so, like, waiting for what the next year school is going to bring, or making predictions on if Snape is actually good or bad. And it was just so fun. And so it's so nice to have that back again.
Yeah.
Because I remember reading Twilight, and I don't remember feeling that way about Twilight. It was just a fun read. I don't remember feeling like, ooh, what's going to happen? You know, what are the theories? I didn't have that with Twilight.
No, for me, it was also just like a fun read.
It was just a fun read. And I forget, I think it was the second book where I really hated Bella. I think everybody did. Yeah. But so this is really fun. And so now we're just going to take these couple of weeks and hopefully get some more reading in. And
next is the start of the Fourth Wing trilogy.
Yeah, I think we will.
Or not trilogy, because I think there's going to be another book.
Yeah, I think there's supposed to be 5.
Yeah. So I think that's...
We'll start an undertaking there.
I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're going to do the 1, 2, 3, or if we're going to do like what we were doing with ACOTAR, like toggling back and forth.
Yeah, maybe toggling. And honestly, I could talk for days about that one. So
yeah, I just finished Iron Flame a few days ago, and I almost threw my book.
Yeah.
So lots to talk about, but it's fun. So in the meantime, keep reading. Check out our list of books that we have read if you haven't gotten to all the episodes. I did make a post a while ago about books to come. I might make another one.
And if you have any insight on this ACOTAR, Crescent City, knowing the things.
Like, should I be reading Crescent City before Throne of Glass? Like, I don't know.
I don't think you need to.
Okay. Well, yeah, make the case.
Yeah.
She's on the fence about Crescent City.
I mean, I know I'm going to have to read it at some point, but it's like, am I now in the rush to read it? Because, like, there are 3 books, but also, like, Sarah hasn't set a date yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. Also, Barnes & Noble, I get their newsletters. They sent out an email the other day, and it was like, it literally, I swear to God, the headline said, like, something like new Sarah J. Maas or something, and I was like, oh my God, she finally announced it. And it was just like they were doing special edition ACOTARs.
And I was like, the Night Court editions, is that what it was?
Yeah, I was like, okay, goodbye.
Yeah, so.
But yeah, let us know. Help me out on that one, or else I'm going to have to just go to social media and go off of what people say, because I don't know.
Yes, please comment. Let us know what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, what you would like to hear, what you would like to read.
Unless you're the one person that left after the housemaid, because...
But if they did, they're not hearing this, so...
It's fine.
But if you know who that is, tell them to come back. We'll be better.
We'll try.
Okay. See ya. Bye.